Remember Toy Story 2 on the original PlayStation? I don't necessarily remember sitting down playing the game as a child, but seeing it on YouTube brings about a profound sense of nostalgia for me. Watching level 1, where you start in the bedroom and work your way through the house, unlocked some memories for me that I didn't even know were there. For me, there's always been something profoundly engaging in video games where you play as a miniature character in an otherwise normal-sized world. There's something about it that evokes a sense of wonder, a magic, if you will, that transports me back to simpler days. It's like something taps into the part of my childhood that would watch Honey, I Shrunk the Kids on the VHS on repeat and crying laughing at the scene where the kid comes face to face with a giant scorpion. An example of a game like this would be Supraland, where you play as a mini red stick figure and complete quests, challenges and puzzles for other stick figures, all taking place in a young boy's back garden. This game is a lot of fun, and again, I love the idea of being tiny, but it doesn't quite scratch the itch that's always been there since the early days of 3D open world platformers. And that makes complete sense because it isn't a 3D open world platformer. Now, I've tried a ton of modern-ish 3D platformers, including A Hat in Time and Yooka-Laylee, which seem to be beloved by many, and I refunded them. I can't remember why I refunded them specifically, but I think it was something to do with the controls being pretty jank. Regardless, I do love 3D platformers, and I've been on the lookout for a good one for a long, long time. So, when in August of 2022 a game dropped called Tinykin, I pulled out my credit card, crossed my fingers and hoped that this was what I'd been looking for. You play as Milo, an astronaut who's trying to fix his rocket ship and head back home to his planet, and you meet these little aliens who give you different abilities in order to accomplish different tasks. Sounds simple. And you know what? After playing it for about half an hour, I could wholeheartedly say it was everything I'd been waiting for. The itch had been scratched, the hunger had been sated, the thirst had been quenched. No longer was I picking my nails like a crackhead because all the other 3D platformers had disappointed. Tinykin was the game that I'd been waiting for, and in my opinion is the best 3D platformer currently on the market. That I was going to absolutely love it. It looked incredible, the controls and the movement were smooth as silk, and the gameplay mechanics were top notch. Firstly, the art style and direction is where Tinykin excels. Yes, it's got this cutesy, cartoony feel to it, but the way that it manages to blend the 2D characters with a fully 3D environment is absolutely stellar. I especially love the way that the game uses everyday items you'd find throughout the house as part of its overall story, its individual quests and challenges, and even part of the controlled environment. For instance, like this piano key being used as a table in a bar, which you have to take back to the piano in order to open up the side hatch to complete a quest. Secondly, the gameplay and controls feel effortless, like a plastic bag drifting through the wind. Wanting to start again, do you ever feel? The controls for a 3D platformer are the most essential part to a 3D platformer, because if the controls don't feel good in your hands, the game is not worth playing. Because if the entire game revolves around jumping and moving between platforms, then the controls need to be as tight as my jeans after Christmas dinner. And if they're not, I'm getting myself a refund. Like I said earlier, the environment is entirely made up of household objects, and every level is designed around a particular room you'd find in an average house. This might sound boring, but the way that they've managed to pull it off gives it a unique charm. I'm only showing the first area so as not to spoil the rest. Also, gameplay, fantastic. There's a lot of different mechanics, like your bubble glider, your soap board, being able to grind almost any edge, launch yourself off NPCs, and most notably, the Tinykin themselves. Little aliens that have different abilities depending on their colour, like the pink ones, who are strong and can carry things around for you, and the red ones, who like to kamikaze themselves into anything and everything. Yes, the mechanics seem to be borrowed from other games, like the Tinykin being borrowed from Pikmin, or the soapboard potentially being borrowed from Super Mario 64's shell surfing, but that's what gives it that sense of nostalgia. It takes what older games did well, and in my opinion, did it better. It looks good, it feels good, it plays good, and it manages to bring a sense of nostalgia whilst also presenting something new and something fresh. Speaking of fresh, today's sponsor is HelloFresh. I'm joking. Today's sponsor is me, as always. We're still on our path to 1,000 subscribers, so if you like what you see so far, then please hit that subscribe button and follow me over on Twitch, where we stream every Monday. Thirdly, I have already mentioned it several times, but I'm going to flesh it out as a point now, so stay with me. Nostalgia. What the heck is nostalgia? I don't know. I don't know the science behind it, but it's a mad feeling that we all know, and for the most part, we all love. When I get the feeling of nostalgia, I'm not necessarily thinking of any memories in particular or whatever. It's just a sense, a feeling, and I like it. It's a good feeling, you know? It's why there are so many remakes of old games. They're tapping into that familiar feeling that everyone is familiar with. Now, an example of this in the game would be when collecting the nectar, which you need to collect to make upgrades throughout the levels, and you complete a special challenge and you get to pick up one of these special pieces of nectar. It didn't necessarily remind me of anything to begin with, but I felt some sort of nostalgia taking hold. And that's when I realised it holds a vague similarity to when you collect a power cell from Jak and Daxter on the PS2, which was one of the first games I ever had as a kid. It tapped into that feeling without shoving down my throat why I was even feeling it in the first place. The game is littered with moments like this where you're constantly amazed at the world around you because it's new and exciting, and yet makes you feel warm and fuzzy because it feels familiar. It's a good vibe, you know, it's a good vibe. There's lots to see and do throughout the game, and even if you just skip through all of the dialogue and don't pay much attention to the story, which is fine, you'll still have a wicked time. You've got collectathons, quests and challenges, puzzles, NPCs to interact with, locations to explore, and when you've completely exhausted all that there is to do and seen everything there is to see, you've got the speed challenges, which the developers kindly dropped in a major update several months after the game's release. They didn't have to because the game was already brilliant, but they did, and they made it even better. The addition of these speed challenges really was the cherry on top. It's not often that developers go the extra mile after launch, but the Tinykin team did exactly that, expanding the game in a way that expands the replayability and kept me coming back for more. Hence why I'm talking about this game from 2022 now in 2025. All in all, this isn't just another 3D platformer. It's a game that feels like it was lost in time, like a lost classic, and has just been waiting for us to rediscover it. Tinykin taps into the parts of us that long for the good old days, whilst making us feel glad that we're in the here and now. It balances this juxtaposition perfectly and creates this sense of magic. From its art design to its perfect balance of challenge and discovery, it's the kind of game that feels like it belongs in the golden age of 3D platformers. One of those games you'd stumble across in your attic after many years, and all the memories and joys come flooding back. If you've been searching for a game that takes you back to those unforgettable childhood moments, Tinykin is that lost classic and has just been waiting for you to find it. Thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, then do be sure to subscribe, and if you're old to the channel, thank you very much for coming back. Your support means the world to me, and I will catch you in the next video. Goodbye. Do you ever feel so paper thin? like a house of cards, won't blow from caving in. Do you ever feel fall so buried deep, 6 feet under screen, but no one seems to hear a thing? Like a lightning bolt, your heart will blow. Then it's time to know. You just gotta ignite the light and let it shine. Just own the night like the 4th of July. Baby, you're a firework. Come on, let your colors burst. Make him go, oh, 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 as you shoot across the sky. Baby, you're a firework. Come on, let your colors burst. Make him go, oh, 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 as you shoot across the sky. Oh, gosh, that's a wrap. Don't include that.